You ever wonder what happens when you just stop giving a damn? No, I mean really stop, not pretend. Not some fake tough act to prove you're above it all. I'm talking about the cold, dead silence inside when the care dies. That moment when you watch the whole circus burn and don't even blink. People always think not caring is weakness, that it's numbness, that it's giving up. But nah, it's rebirth. It's when the real you claws out of the coffin they buried you in. You see, most people walk around chained, dragging this dead weight of expectations, guilt, people-pleasing, fear of judgment. They care so much it eats them alive. They care what they think, what she says, what he did, what they feel. What if they leave? What if they cheat? What if they laugh? Well, guess what? They will leave. They do cheat. And they're already laughing. You just didn't see it yet. But when you stop caring, really stop, the whole game flips. The rules change. And so do you. You see things you never saw before, not because they weren't there, but because your eyes were too damn fogged up with emotion. You start seeing the snakes that smiled at your kindness, the shadows behind their compliments, the way your silence haunts them more than your words ever did. I've watched it, seen people break themselves just to fit in a room full of cheap plastic masks, cry themselves to sleep for folks who sleep just fine. And then I've seen what happens when they snap, when they go cold, calm, unbothered. That's when the world goes silent and they start losing their minds. So I'm gonna break it down for you. 10 things. 10 brutal, painful, beautifully honest things you'll see when you finally stop caring. When you let go of the rope they tied around your neck. When you walk off the stage mid-scene and leave them all gasping for your attention like addicts without a fix. But don't expect sunshine. Don't expect applause. This is the ugly part of growth, baby. The part no one claps for. The part where you bleed in silence. Where your peace costs you everything. And gives you more than you ever had. So sit back. Don't take notes. Let it burn into your bones. 'Cause by the end of this, you'll either be free or still stuck, begging for the love you thought you needed. First thing you'll see when you stop caring, the distance you should have made years ago. The first thing that smacks you in the face the moment you stop caring is distance, but not the kind that hurts. No, this one heals. It's like stepping out of a room full of smoke, finally breathing, and realizing just how long you've been choking without knowing it. You start noticing that half the people you used to chase never really looked back. You realize how far you stretched yourself for people who wouldn't move a damn inch for you. You gave them rides when they wouldn't walk for you. You stayed up listening when they ignored your silence. You showed up for people who vanished the second you needed them. And once you stop caring, that distance that scared you before, it becomes a blessing, a mirror, a lesson. See, most people think closeness is about love. Nah. Closeness without respect is a slow death. And the moment you stop caring what people feel when you finally put yourself first, the parasites scatter. Like roaches when the lights come on, the fake friends vanish, the users dry up, the ones who were only around to benefit from your kindness, they fade quick. No more you've changed texts. No more you're distant lately guilt trips. They say those things because you stopped being useful, not because they miss you. Let that sink deep. You weren't loved. You were convenient. You weren't cherished. You were just available. And the moment you stopped caring, you broke the contract they wrote without your permission. The one that said, you must bleed for me to feel whole. And yeah, at first, it hurts. Of course it does. You're shedding a skin you wore for years. You're walking alone and the echoes feel loud. But then something clicks. You start hearing your own voice again. You start feeling your own damn pulse without needing someone else to confirm it. And you realize how peaceful the silence is when it's not full of fake apologies and conditional love. You stop explaining yourself. Stop checking who watched your story. Stop giving a damn if they're okay with you being distant. You start protecting your energy like it's all you've got. Because truth is, it is all you've got. And suddenly, your peace matters more than their presence. Your time becomes gold. Your space becomes sacred. And that distance that once made you feel forgotten, it starts to feel like freedom. That's the first thing, my friend. The brutal, beautiful truth that once you stop caring, you finally start living outside their expectations. And the farther you walk, the clearer you see who was real and who just wore the costume of closeness. Second thing, you'll see when you stop caring, their masks start to slip. You ever watch someone squirm when they lose control over you? That's what happens next. When you stop caring, really stop. When your silence becomes consistent, your eyes grow colder, your answers shorter. People start showing you who they really are, not the version they painted when they needed you. No, I'm talking raw, unfiltered, uncomfortable truth. You stop playing the puppet, and suddenly the puppet master doesn't know what strings to pull. And it drives them mad. See, when you cared, they wore masks. Pretty little disguises tailored to your weakness, fake loyalty, forced affection, sweet manipulation disguised as worry. But when you stop reacting, that mask starts slipping fast. And you realize they never liked you. They liked the control, the attention, the version of you that bent, gave in, explained, apologized for things you didn't even do. The version of you that broke yourself just to keep the peace. They loved that version. But the moment you stop feeding their ego, their true colors come crawling out. The smiles fade. The tone changes. The silence gets heavy. The jabs become clearer. You hear the sarcasm they used to hide. You notice the absence you used to justify, and you realize they never changed. You just finally opened your damn eyes. You thought they were kind. No, they were calculated. You thought they were honest. No, they were just good liars. And when you stopped caring, you finally stopped making excuses for them. You stopped defending their actions to yourself. You stopped rewriting the pain just to make it digestible. You look at them, not with anger, but with clarity, and you see it all. How they used your empathy against you. How they smiled in your face and cheered for your silence. How they only showed up when it benefited them and dipped the moment you needed a real one. And here's the sick part. The moment you stop caring is the moment they care the most, but not in the way you hoped. They don't care about you. They care about losing the power they had over you. They care about no longer being able to dictate your mood, no longer being able to push the buttons they installed. Your silence, it exposes them. Your lack of reaction, it burns. Because now, they gotta face themselves without your comfort to soften the blow. And trust me, most people can't do that. They need a villain to point at. They need you to be the problem so they don't have to fix their own sickness. But when you stop caring, when you don't even flinch at their games, they're left naked, unmasked, and powerless. And that's a view worth the pain. Because once the masks fall, you finally know who you were fighting for and who you were just fooling yourself about. Third thing, you'll see when you stop caring. Your absence screams louder than your presence ever did. There's a noise that silence makes when it hits the wrong people. A kind of suffocating stillness they can't sit with. When you used to show up, answer fast, always be there, listen when no one else would. They got used to it, took it for granted, treated your consistency like a default setting. But when you stop caring, when you stop chasing, stop checking in, stop existing for them, the silence becomes a damn siren in their head. Suddenly your absence screams, and the ones who once ignored you start wondering where the warmth went. They walk into a room and feel the cold you left behind because you were the fire, and they were too blind to see it while it burned for them. See, they were never scared of losing you. Not when you were still trying. Not when you were still hoping. Not when you were still giving pieces of yourself to people who never earned them. But the day you stopped showing up, the day you stopped texting first, the day you stopped responding like your soul depended on their attention, that's when the panic kicked in. That's when the questions started crawling through their mind like roaches in the dark. Why are they so quiet? Why don't they care anymore? And then the real fear hits. What if they're better off without me? They'll never say it out loud, of course, Pride's a funny thing. It makes cowards pretend to be kings. So instead of asking you directly, they'll play games, post things, hoping you'll see. Send half-hearted, "How are you?" messages. Try to trigger your old self, the one that used to drop everything at the sound of their voice. But when you stop caring, those tricks don't work anymore. You've evolved past their reach. You start to realize that peace isn't loud. It doesn't beg. It doesn't explain. It doesn't react. It just walks away and lets the silence do what words never could. And make no mistake, your absence becomes a mirror, a reflection of everything they failed to value, the conversations they ignored, the love they mistreated, the loyalty they overlooked. And now they sit with echoes of the things you used to say, trying to remember what it felt like to matter to someone who actually gave a damn. But the doors you close when you stop caring, they don't creak open again. They lock from the inside. And only the healed version of you holds the key. So let them hear it. Let them feel the storm you didn't cause, but their actions did. You don't have to shout. You don't have to fight. Just be gone. Because sometimes the loudest revenge is to disappear. And let the silence scream everything you were too loyal to say out loud. Fourth thing, they suddenly remember your worth. But it's too damn late. Funny, isn't it? How they only start seeing your value the moment you take it away, the second you stop caring. Stop reaching. Stop bleeding yourself dry to fill their cracks. That's when the flashbacks hit them. That's when they remember the nights you stayed up for them while they ignored your pain. The days you sacrificed your own peace just to make sure they were okay. The times you were their only light while they were busy creating darkness in your life. But back then, you were invisible. Background noise. Just another option in a world full of distractions. They saw your kindness as weakness, your forgiveness as foolishness, your presence as guaranteed. Until you stop showing up. Now they remember. Oh, now they see. Now they bring up old memories like broken records, hoping nostalgia will reopen doors they slammed shut with their own ego. Now they say, "You were always good to me." Or, "I miss how things used to be." Like that erases all the pain they made you carry in silence. But it's not love they feel. It's panic. Panic that they finally lost someone who would have given them the world if only they had opened their eyes. But instead of nurturing the seed, they trampled the garden. And now they want flowers to grow from the ashes they created. But you're not that fool anymore. You've outgrown their apologies. You've heard enough. I didn't realize what I had. No, they realized it. They just didn't care. Until your indifference became a mirror they couldn't avoid. When you stop caring, it's like waking up from a deep coma. You look back at everything you gave, everything you tolerated, and it disgusts you. Not because you were wrong to love, but because you gave that kind of loyalty to people who wouldn't even give you a damn seat at their table unless they needed something. And when they come back, and they will come back, don't expect growth. Expect desperation. They don't miss you. They miss control. They don't miss your heart. They miss how easy it was to break it and still get another chance. But you've changed. You've grown sharp where you were soft, cold where you were warm, quiet where you once screamed for them to stay. And that's when they'll break. Because nothing haunts a person more than realizing they had everything and let it rot. So when they crawl back, whispering, "I see your worth now," just smile. Not because you want revenge, but because the version of you that begged for their recognition, that version died. And now they're mourning someone they buried with their own hands. Let them. Your value doesn't need their validation anymore. You've already risen from the grave they dug for you. And trust me, there's no space for the dead in the life you're about to live. Fifth thing, you'll realize how much you were forcing it. Here's the part nobody likes to admit, not even to themselves. You were forcing it. The calls, the texts, the conversations that felt like pulling teeth. The way you'd reread a message before sending it, just to make sure you didn't come off too much. The constant mental gymnastics, wondering if you're too available, too emotional, too quiet, too you. The truth is, deep down, you knew something wasn't right, but you held on. You made excuses. You convinced yourself that if you just loved harder, stayed longer, gave more, they'd finally meet you halfway. But they never did. And they never were going to. Because people don't appreciate what they don't earn. And you were giving VIP access to someone who didn't even deserve standing room. When you stop caring, though, it's like waking up from a dream that was slowly turning into a nightmare. You start seeing all the ways you dimmed your light just to make them feel better in their darkness. You see how you over-explained your emotions to people who never once asked how you felt. How you stayed in conversations long after they stopped being real. How you kept trying to fix something that was never supposed to be whole. And you realize you weren't loved. You were tolerated. You weren't heard. You were managed. And the hardest pill to swallow? You were fighting for someone who wasn't even in the damn ring. But that's what happens when you care too much in a world that feeds off ego. You bend, you bleed, you break your own standards just to feel needed. And you call it loyalty, you call it love. But really, it's fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of being forgotten. Fear that maybe if this doesn't work, nothing else ever will. So you cling, even when your soul's screaming that it's time to let go. Even when every interaction leaves you emptier than the last. Even when you cry yourself to sleep and wake up pretending like everything's fine. But when you stop caring, all of that stops. You don't chase. You don't explain. You don't shrink. You walk. You walk without closure, without chaos, without needing them to understand why. Because the peace you feel when you finally drop the rope, it's deafening. It silences every doubt, every regret, every moment you thought you weren't enough. You see, caring for the wrong people teaches you what self-betrayal looks like. And not caring anymore, that's the first step to coming home to yourself. So if it feels heavy right now, if it stings, if you're standing at the edge wondering if you're heartless for letting go, you're not. You're just finally listening to that quiet voice inside that's been whispering, "This isn't love. This is survival." And you were never meant to survive in someone else's shadow. You were born to stand in your own damn light. Let the fake fall away. Let what was forced collapse. Let the silence speak. Because the moment you stop caring is the moment you start healing. Sixth thing, your energy was the real currency all along. The world runs on energy, not love, not loyalty, not promises, energy. And when you stop caring, when you pull your emotional plug out of the sockets they've been leeching from, you start seeing the game for what it really is. See, while you were pouring your soul out, draining your time, breaking your back, trying to be enough, they were feeding off it, living off it. Your kindness, your check-ins, your emotional availability. That was the fuel. That was the damn currency. They didn't love you. They loved what you gave. Your attention, that was their high. Your concern, that was their ego boost. Every time you replied fast, bent your boundaries, showed up uninvited just to be there, they felt powerful, important. But the moment you stop caring, the supply stops, and they go into withdrawal. It hits hard because you realize you were the sun in their world while they kept you in the dark. You lit up their insecurities, gave them warmth when they were cold, healed wounds they never even told you about. And they never once said thank you, never once gave you what you gave them. You were the giver, the healer, the rock, and they were addicts to your emotional labor. But when you cut them off, when your care dries up, they start acting like you've betrayed them. Like you're the villain for finally choosing yourself. Because to people who use you, your boundaries will always feel like an attack. But here's the lesson. You were never the weak one. You were the source. You were the energy keeping the whole damn connection alive. And now that you're gone, they're just standing there holding wires that no longer spark. You ever notice how people only start calling you cold after you stop letting them burn you? That's not a coincidence. That's projection. They can't handle the power shift. They can't handle not being able to press your buttons and get the same reaction. Your silence, that's starvation to their ego. your disinterest. That's poison to their pride. And suddenly, you become expensive, rare, unreachable, not because you changed, but because they never deserved what you gave them in the first place. They just got used to the discount version of your worth. They were never prepared for full price. But now they're learning, slowly, painfully, regretfully. They're learning that energy isn't infinite, that hearts close when they've been used too long, that the most powerful thing you can do to someone who once drained you is stop caring, not hate, not rage, just detachment, cold, still, unapologetic distance. So take it in, feel the shift, let the silence grow. You don't owe anyone your energy just because they're used to it. You don't owe anyone your light just because they're lost in the dark. You are not a charger for broken people. You are not a therapist for those who only love you when they're lonely. You are power. And when you stop caring, they finally see what they were really connected to. And trust me, they never deserved the connection. Seventh thing. Peace hurts them more than war ever did. You think yelling would have made them regret it? You think screaming, calling them out, exposing the truth would have shook them? Nah. That's what they expected. That's what they wanted. Because chaos is easy. Anger is familiar. They can twist rage and label it as bitter. They can paint your pain as obsession. But silence? Peace? Not caring anymore? That's a bullet they never see coming. When you stop reacting, when you stop feeding the fire with your emotions, you kill their control. You become unpredictable, unreachable. And the scariest part, you become untouchable. Peace makes people uncomfortable, especially the ones who thrived off your storm. They're left standing in a battlefield, armed with insults, manipulation, half apologies, and you're not there anymore. No war to fight, no stage to perform on. You stopped playing the part. You walked off the set, and the show can't go on without you. That calmness you found, that stillness, it's power. It's you finally realizing you don't have to attend every battle you're invited to. You don't have to prove your worth to people who measured it in convenience. You don't have to raise your voice to be heard. Sometimes the loudest message is the one you don't send, and they feel it. Oh, they feel it. Every time they check your profile and see no reaction. Every time they bring up your name and people just shrug. Every time they try to trigger you and you don't even blink. That's when they realize they lost something real. Not because you said it, but because your silence confirmed it. Peace is heavy when someone's used to living in war. And your peace, it becomes their prison. They sit with the guilt they used to dump on you. They replay conversations looking for signs of when you gave up. They wonder who replaced them. But the truth is, no one had to replace them. You just chose yourself. You stopped chasing closure, stopped writing long texts explaining why you're done, stopped hoping they'd finally get it. You realized that peace isn't about pretending you're okay. It's about actually being okay with letting them go, with not needing revenge, with not needing validation, just peace, quiet, distance, a heart that beats without panic, a mind that doesn't question itself every night. And that kind of peace, that's a luxury they can't afford, because the Snei of Aegir, they've never faced themselves without you as a distraction. So let them wonder. Let them sit in the silence. Let them choke on the stillness they once begged for when they ignored your storms. You're not the same anymore. You don't need war to feel powerful. You don't need attention to feel seen. You got peace now. And it's killing them more than any rage ever could. Eighth thing, you'll see, you were never the problem. You were the mirror. This is the part that hits the hardest, not for you, but for them. Because once you stop caring, they're forced to deal with something they've been running from their whole damn lives, themselves. You see, when you were there, always trying, always listening, always adjusting, they had someone to project on, someone to blame. You became the emotional dumpster for their insecurities, their failures, their unresolved trauma. Every time they felt small, they made you feel smaller. Every time they messed up, somehow you ended up apologizing. And the craziest part, you started believing them. You started thinking maybe you were too sensitive, too dramatic, too much. But nah, you were just too real for people who couldn't handle their own reflection. Because that's what you were, a mirror. You showed them their laziness by being consistent. You showed them their coldness by being warm. You showed them their emptiness by being full of love. And they hated it. They resented it. Not because you did anything wrong, but because your presence reminded them of everything they refused to become. So they blamed you, manipulated you, gaslit you into thinking you were the issue, when the truth was, you were the truth. And truth makes liars uncomfortable. But the moment you stop caring, the mirror cracks. They can't dump it on you anymore. Can't twist your words. Can't rewrite the narrative. All they have left is their reflection. And it's ugly. It's lonely. It's hollow. Without you there to absorb the damage, they feel the full weight of who they are. And trust me, that kind of silence screams louder than any argument. That's when the regret sets in. That's when the guilt starts clawing. Not because they've grown, but because they no longer have a scapegoat. And you finally see it. All the overthinking, all the self-doubt, all the times you stayed up wondering what you did wrong, it fades. Because you realize you weren't broken. You weren't toxic. You weren't too emotional. You were surrounded by people who couldn't face their own demons, so they made you feel like one. And now that you're gone, now that you don't care, they're left battling shadows that look a lot like the truth they tried to bury. So stop apologizing for how loud your love was. Stop shrinking to make fragile egos feel strong. You weren't the storm, you were the damn shelter. And if they couldn't handle the reflection you gave them, that's not your fault. That's their unfinished business. You were never the problem, you were the reminder. And when you stop caring, they finally see the real enemy. And it's not you, it's their own damn reflection. Ninth thing you'll see. You'll finally understand the difference between being chosen and being used. There's a truth that doesn't hit you until after the silence, after the healing begins, after the chains of care fall off your wrists and you start walking like your soul ain't shackled anymore. And that truth is this: you weren't being chosen, you were being used. Read that again, slowly, because it'll gut you if you're honest enough to let it land. You thought you mattered. You thought you were special. You thought that because they stayed, because they smiled, because they said all the right things when it was convenient, that it meant you were valued. But once you stop caring, once you pull away and start watching things without the filter of emotion, you see it all. And what you see, it ain't love, it's utility. They kept you close because you were useful, not because you were irreplaceable. They used your loyalty as a safety net, your time as a doormat, your forgiveness as a weakness. They picked you, not because you were the one they respected, but because you were the easiest to manipulate. And when you stop caring, when the spell breaks and your worth walks back into the room, you start replaying everything. All those random calls, they only came when they needed something. All those deep conversations, they were one-sided. You poured, they drank. You listened, they vented. You supported, they vanished when the table turned. It was never equal. It was never love. It was convenience. And you'll feel it in your gut. That hollow kind of pain that doesn't scream but whispers. Damn, I really let myself believe in them. But that pain, that's growth. That's your heart stretching into a shape that doesn't bend for the wrong ones anymore. You'll learn to stop romanticizing crumbs just because you were starving for connection. You'll stop begging for space in people's lives when your presence should have been enough. You'll stop confusing being available with being wanted. Because the ones who truly choose you, they don't need to use you. They meet you halfway. They don't take until you break. They don't disappear when you need them. They don't love in cycles. They love in constants. And once you've been used enough times, once you stop caring enough to let it happen again, you become immune to manipulation wrapped in sweet words. You start choosing you, not out of revenge, but out of respect, out of the realization that peace and love should never be things you have to fight for. They should meet you where you are. So here's the truth that hurts before it heals. If they had to lose you to realize your worth, they never truly saw it. If they only cared when you stopped, they never really cared. And if they used you when you were at your best, they damn sure don't deserve you now that you've risen from the ashes. You weren't hard to love. You were just easy to use. And now you see the difference. And that vision, that's your freedom. 10th thing, you become everything they pretended to be. Here's the final shift, the most poetic one, the one they never saw coming. When you stop caring, you become the version of yourself they only pretended to be. The silent one, the strong one, the one who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't cry behind screens, praying to be enough. The one who doesn't fold under pressure or guilt or emotional blackmail. They used to wear the mask of power, stone-faced, cold, like they didn't care, just to keep you chasing. They acted like they were unbothered, like they were always in control, like nothing you did or said ever really moved them. But the truth? It did. It always did. But they needed the upper hand, so they pretended to be who you are now. But now, the roles flipped. Now, it's your silence they can't handle. Now, it's you they can't read. Now, you disappear without explanation, and they check their phone a little too often, wondering why it's so damn quiet. Now they lie awake at night with no closure, no message, no validation to feed their pride. And they start to unravel. Because now you're the one who doesn't care. You became what they faked all along. You finally wore the armor, not to hurt anyone, but to protect the only thing that mattered, your soul. And that's what eats at them. Not the loss, not the distance, not even the guilt. What breaks them is that you're better off without them. You've got peace in your chest and steel in your spine. You're moving in silence, glowing in the dark, walking like you never needed their approval to begin with. And they hate it, because now you hold the one thing they never had, no matter how much they pretended: inner power. You're no longer available. You're no longer triggered. You're no longer breakable by words that used to make you crumble. And the more they try to get back in, whether through guilt, nostalgia, or sudden clarity, the more they realize you're not coming back. Not because you're bitter, not because you want revenge, but because the version of you that needed them no longer exists. You finally see it. You were never meant to stay small just to keep people comfortable. You were never supposed to shrink so others could feel tall. All along, they feared this version of you. The version that walks away, that doesn't answer, that doesn't seek closure, that doesn't explain, They feared the day you'd wake up and see your own damn value. And now, that day has come. And they're the ones who feel small. Because when you stop caring, you stop faking. And when you stop faking, you stop playing roles in their little drama. And when you stop playing, the whole act collapses. The audience leaves. The stage goes dark. And all that's left is the real you. Strong, still, silent, free. And in that silence, they finally hear the truth. You were never the weak one. You were just the one who cared the most, but not anymore, not ever again. And now here you are, not broken, not bitter, just done. There's no dramatic exit, no loud goodbye, no need to prove anything anymore. You didn't need to destroy them. You just needed to stop saving them. You stopped explaining your worth. Stopped waiting for an apology that was never coming. Stopped showing up for people who only noticed your absence when their comfort disappeared with you. And the beauty of it all? You didn't need revenge. You didn't need to hurt them back. You just left. Mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Gone. And that's the kind of departure that doesn't echo, it haunts. Because when you stop caring, you don't turn into a monster. You turn into the version of yourself that always deserved peace. The one who was buried under layers of guilt, shame, and second chances. You become colder, but not cruel. Quieter, but not weak. Distant, but not lost. You become intentional, guarded, whole. You start choosing your battles like a king, speaking less but meaning more, moving slowly but hitting harder. You don't explain your silence. You don't defend your absence. You just exist, and that alone becomes louder than every word they ever threw at you. And yes, they'll talk. Of course they will. They'll say you changed, that you flipped, that you went cold. But what they won't say, what they can't say, is the part that burns. They pushed you there. They fed off your warmth until there was nothing left but ashes. And now that you've become the fire instead of the flame, they can't stand the heat. They'll try to rewrite history, paint you as the villain, but you won't care. You won't even correct them. Because caring, that door's been sealed, welded shut, lost somewhere behind all the nights you cried yourself to sleep. Behind all the times you begged for honesty and got silence. Behind every I'm sorry that came too late and meant too little, and you learned the hard way, the painful way, the real way, that not everyone deserves a seat at your table, that love without respect is just manipulation with pretty wrapping, that loyalty given too easily becomes a leash they choke you with. But most importantly, you learned that letting go isn't weakness, it's war. A silent, internal war. And you won. So what now? You live, unapologetically, unchained, unbothered. You smile, but not for them. You move, but not for validation. You breathe, but not to prove you're okay. You just are. And for once, that's enough. More than enough. Because in the end, when you finally stop caring, you don't lose people. You lose illusions. And what's left is you, the real you. And that's the most dangerous version of all.